Hey folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. And if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com. I'll try to get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. I've been looking forward to recording this podcast ever since we started planning on it. I'll have David and Dixon joining me again from Golden Sheaf and 2XO respectively, as well as blending bourbon and a couple of other things that you guys will get to learn about while we talk through it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This morning or afternoon, and whenever you happen to be consuming this, I have Dixon and David joining me again, representing their brands, but also kind of their own personal brand, as some people use that. So I've had you guys on before individually, and we've had some conversations. Thank you guys for hopping on. I'll give you 30 seconds to kind of introduce yourself for anybody who hasn't ever listened to you and made the mistake of not listening to Blending Bourbon or any other podcast that either one of y'all have been on. I'll let Dixon go first, all right, since he's the most beautiful man on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you. My name is David Mark Young. I am the pride of Omaha, Nebraska. I was once a male model. I have 37 tattoos visible to the average person, and 3 that are tucked away in certain places. You have to pay admission. You can only see them on my OnlyFans page. And I collect belly button rings. That's kind of what I do. So, and on top of, other stuff, but that's me. That's me, David Mark Young.
I don't know how you follow that. And my immediate question is,
I told you, I've been waiting for this.
Are you collecting the belly button rings like in a box, or are they just lined up around the belly button ring like they're all belly button pierced in, and you just got a bunch of them?
So my name is Samuel Dixon Dedman. I live in Danville, Kentucky.
Sorry, John, this is probably not going the way you had hoped.
This is going way better than I had hoped.
I make whiskey from rare breed birds and alpha phonetic Greek terminology. I can't top that, Dixon.
Listen. No one believes that was me, because I have not only have I never heard the word alpha phonetic before, but I wouldn't even try to guess what it means. That is way too many syllables for the Kentucky public school education system. I can tell you that much.
I should have apologized in advance, John. I knew this was going to go downhill right from the gate.
Zero apology needed here whatsoever.
It's great to see you, John, and thanks for having us on. This has been a long time coming, so appreciate you taking time and inviting us, and always great to share a podcast.
I promise from this point forward, I will be on my best behavior.
Not saying a lot, man.
That feels like maybe a missed opportunity. You don't have to be on your best behavior. This is definitely not the podcast for that. I found a way to wear a buttoned up shirt without a collar on it, right? So we can at least keep it sort of business casual, but no, we don't have to be formal here.
Good. So, I'm not wearing pants.
That's the thing that I miss from COVID the most is being able to work without pants, right? Because then I could just sit here and nobody knew what was going on.
Insert Dixon's OnlyFans link right here.
Honestly, there's probably going to be some OnlyFans links in the show notes of this particular episode. I don't know where they're going to go, but it's going to be the one that makes the most sense for the conversation that happens here. I don't even know where the hell to go next on my questions. Right? Where do I even start? I had a few teasers, but you guys, honestly, that was really impressive. I don't know if y'all had those wrote out or if those just came off the top of the head. If those came off the top of the head, you've got a future in maybe roasting or battle rapping, something along that lines, right? You're just a
Well,
couple of
thanks for your
rhymes
time,
away.
John. This was fun. We'll go ahead and just seal the deal right now.
Yeah, it'll probably be the most listened to episode that I've ever had. So maybe that's a good place to start, right? So you guys, 6-9 months ago, were working on the Blending Bourbon podcast together, and then that sort of is kind of stopped. Is that podcast over, or are you guys kind of taking a pause and working on the things that actually make you money, as opposed to the things that have you sitting in your office on a Wednesday morning at 10 a.m.
Can I take this?
Well, you can start. I'm not sure.
I'll try because I know you're going to give a long-winded answer. I'll just give the no. It just it did everything kind of between recording episodes. I don't know that Dixon or I really gave it a thought up until 5 minutes prior, and then it was like, what the fuck are we going to talk about? And then it the majority of the content was off the cuff, and so it was fun. And then at one point it was like, all right, we had some other priorities creep up, and then it was just kind of kept getting pushed aside. And then I'm just gonna throw out that it's not been abandoned by any means. Matter of fact, I went through a whole rebranding of the podcast, and then have engaged with I'll say another production company, and so it's just kind of sitting in a queue waiting to pull the trigger, flip the on switch. And so I'm excited about it. However, I don't even want to touch it until I've got the appropriate amount of time to commit to it. So but I'm excited as hell to re-engage with it, get it going again. It'll have a little different. So, and then that's my side of it. Now Dixon can tell you the truth.
No, I mean, I loved it, and it was this kind of great outlet. I mean, I think maybe to a fault, I would get on there and just start ranting about whatever was irritating me or whatever, and it's kind of funny when you talk about it and you're kind of in this, you forget that you're not really in this circle of trust, and but the challenges that I really faced, and I think we faced because of this was, I'd be in some random city across the country and trying to ask them if I could get 45 minutes in between, account visits or distributor meetings or something to try to jump on and do it. I mean, it's not a, the last year or so of my life has I feel like been spent more on airplanes and in hotels. And, so I was constantly, we were constantly trying to find a window here or there or whatever. And then I have a whole new appreciation for the people who can do it, can create content on a regular basis. Because like David said, I mean, that was the challenge. It's like, okay, we're recording at whatever 11, and at 10:55 the text is, okay, you got any ideas? And I'm like, I'm trying to get off this call right now so that I can make it. So that was, I mean, it's just, I think we both had a blast with it. And it was kind of one of those, for me anyway, it was one of those things. It was like, I mean, we're not trying to take on the world here. We're not trying to, but it was almost in a certain sense at times therapeutic. It's just finding the time for that is tough.
I mean, you're not wrong, right? Generating content is something. It's a lot easier if you just invite people on and ask them questions and let them make the content for you. So what I learned really, really quickly early on is like, hey, just invite somebody on and post questions, and you guys have the ability to do that to each other. And then as a creator, you kind of make a list of here's all the ideas of content, and I think you guys are probably idea people as well. And as soon as you write the idea down, it gets less interesting. You're like, I don't know if I want to talk about that anymore, right? Sometimes off the cuff is far more fun. I don't know if that's my ADHD brain. Maybe I'm off base there. So you guys have both been incredibly busy. One of you is convalescing, the other one's building a brand. So tell me about what's going on with Golden Sheaf first, and then we'll do 2XO.
Yeah, Golden Sheaf is, it's scaling. I've learned to really listen to the advice of the experienced, those that have done this for, Dixon, that have learned and, embraced that. There's folks that have brands that are like, oh man, we're in 13 states and it's painful. And 6 months prior, they were in 3 states, hoping to be in 5 states. And, so it's been, I think we sort of redesigned the scaling model, and a lot of it has to do with the price point of Golden Sheaf. Looking in hindsight, we launched this product at a higher SRP and expected everybody just embrace it with zero knowledge or historical good, bad, or indifferent. And I think we did a good job, whatever markets we go into, to make a good name for ourselves. But then it's like there's not a lot of variety that you get with other brands, lower price points. The variety is in the expressions, but they're all at that higher price point. So it's kind of like, especially in today's market, the market's shifted significantly in the last couple of years, and people focus on those $40, $50, $60 price points. The more expensive stuff is $70, $80, and so we're still sitting at between somewhere around 150 and higher even in other markets, and which is great, but unless you're pouring liquid gold, you're not going to saturate the market, and that's not our business model. So I'm quite satisfied with what we've done with it, our approach to going into new markets. We've got, it's high price point, higher age. It's targeting a specific demographic, not the entire whiskey demographic, for sure. And we've got some things in lineup for the future, but for me personally, it's kind of become one of many projects, and fortunately, they're all within the whiskey space. But I think we talked about this on the past episode, John. I spent a number of years in the cybersecurity space, tech space, and so over the last few years, I've found myself kind of leaning in to the whiskey space. I would observe something, and I think it's you get this. It's kind of within our nature to go, that's great, but you could do it better if you did this. Simplifying, creating efficiencies, and solving problems, that sort of thing, and leveraging technology and forward thinking. So now got this whole new offering focused on the spirit industry, where we're applying data science and artificial intelligence to production environments, and even some marketing strategies and so forth, which has been overwhelmingly embraced. There's such a high demand for it, I think, just because of the antiquated nature of the industry. Why fix something if it's not broken? Most distilleries have been creating excellent whiskeys for a long, long time, and so you do it the way you've always known, and it's very successful. And so we've been able to demonstrate some complements to that, and gain efficiencies, definitely make production improvements and really contribute to. So that's exciting. But again, it takes away from that blending bourbon, which I love to do. And now it's just a matter of taking this. So the company's called Distillix, if I can give a little plug. We've got a good number of clients down in Kentucky and across the nation. But that's where I've been spending a lot of time. And that's, hence trying to dial in Golden Sheaf, create a almost, repeatable model and be able to just kind of drop that in the appropriate regions or markets that it fits in. So it's not, everywhere. It's not a.
I just want to say that I just played corporate buzzword bingo with what you just said.
Was it complete blackout?
The only box I have not filled is low hanging fruit. So if you could just
we didn't say synergy. There was no synergy.
Was there no synergy?
No, he didn't say synergy.
Oh, that's a mistake on my part. But yeah, that was great. That was really fantastic.
Good. I was just running out of breath, so good segue.
I think he noticed that. I think he was taking the cue for you to give you a chance to capture your breath, and that's really interesting. I've got a couple of questions that I'll follow up with, but now Dixon, what do you got going on?
Follow up. He's on a roll. He's feeling it. He's feeling it.
I gotta let the brain particles recharge.
You got to catch up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have anything exciting like that to talk about. My world is good. 2XO is good. We're
it is.
I think that was kind of one of the things I think it's very interesting. Dave and I haven't really talked about this much, but there's to me there's somewhat of a noticeable. Oh, there you go. Noticeable shift taking place in the industry, and it's you see it both at the consumer level as well as and the different aspects of the industry, and so we've while the LTO or limited time offering or the Icon series, the Gem of Kentucky things, these higher price points. Are kind of my bread and butter, kind of what I enjoy. One of the places that we're really expanding, 2XO is kind of in that everyday. I always refer to it as our, the kill it on Tuesday, replace it on Wednesday bottle, and I see that. That's kind of that's really where it seems like this thing is going, and so having almost a year of the American oak out there, and the response to that has been pretty incredible, and kind of entering into the everyday lexicon of the consumer, not the I've only got one of these, and so but it's the and we've added a French oak version to that has rolled out successfully in 5 markets, and then we'll hit the other 45 markets here in the coming month or so, and it is to me it's kind of the last year or so has been a whole new experience from my previous life and what we did early with 2XO, kind of focusing a lot more on brand building in the on premise, which is a challenge, but it's a fun challenge, and kind of getting into more of a I don't know, just kind of an everyday understanding of a brand, rather than being something that's kind of targeted for your connoisseurs and the aficionados or whatever, but so it's we've I don't say we've changed direction or anything like that, but I think that's where there's the most opportunity for 2XO right now, and so You kind of go about that a little bit differently. But I'm about to launch the next LTO, which is called the Sneakerhead Blend, which I'm pretty excited about. Getting that one out there, and so it's going to be a busy kind of second half of the year.
When's that one hit the market?
August, September.
Wow,
right around
that's
there.
exciting. So. There's been a lot of hype about that on social. There's it's a morphine of two worlds, and both are huge.
It was so funny. Even we've done this so many times, or not so many times, but and you talked to but it was like right at the time that we launched, like put the Kiowa blend in the market, was almost the exact same time that we got the TTB approval and everything for the Sneakerhead blend. So then people go and they pull that off the site, and they're all and it's like no, I need you to kind of focus on that one's not coming yet.
Right.
It's kind of interesting, but
I don't know. That's been there's been buzz about it for quite some time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's good. It's just I feel like I don't, because I did the Sneakerhead. I don't know. So, I put it together, and it's almost like I start the next one right after one gets to the market. And it's almost, sometimes it's like I don't even get to catch my breath or kind of focus on the one that's out, because I've got to go play with the next one.
Yeah. Well, and I've wondered about that. You go out on the road and you have a front and center expression that you're promoting. But I think it'd be interesting to go to tastings with you. I'm sure, there are flights of all of the expressions, and people want to talk about their favorite and that sort of thing. But I think your mission is primarily to promote the newest product that you're taking to market.
I mean, it's kind of a little both, right? You're promoting the one that you're taking to market, because it's an in and out. It's a one in and one out.
Yeah.
And most of the other times, we're not kind of focusing on the ones that are already sold through. But what is fun now is to have American, French, these things, and you kind of do this. It's like it's completely different than, it's 4 of these high profile, allocated, hard to come by. Now it's like, no, what kind of fun cocktails can you make with American oak, and then we'll do it. And so it's we have that that baseline, instead of it being like, okay, we've got 3 3/4 ounce pours of these higher end bottles, and it's just a different type of tasting or whatever.
Right.
Can you guys hear me or see me now?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we just kept going, John. We didn't even notice you were gone.
Thank you so much. I don't know what happened with our Wi-Fi here. I just attached to my cell phone as a hotspot, so we'll see how that holds out on StreamYard, because I've never done that before. It's a new fun thing.
Hey, I'm the king of tech challenges.
Oh God, don't get me started. So. But the box kept saying recording, so we just kept talking.
Yeah, no, it luckily that's the benefit of a browser-based recording, is that it'll keep on even if I'm not here.
Yeah.
Man, I have a fiber directly to this house because I work from home, and I need that. And so I don't know what went down, but I went down. My children aren't back in school yet, and so they were downstairs, like the TV's not working, and they're paying. I'm like, just don't even go outside. And we got it. I don't know if Dixon, if you guys have a heat warning or not. We have a heat warning. It's supposed to be like 115 degrees today or whatever. So they need to get out now before it gets too bad. Anyways, all right. Dixon, you were talking about what's going on with 2XO. David, you had talked about kind of what's been going on with you and with Golden Sheaf, and you said something in there about not necessarily changing the direction of 2XO, but maybe more of a refocusing on your standard daily offerings as opposed to LTOs. But the LTO of the Sneakerhead Blend is coming out, right? And so maybe one of these is, David, are you a sneakerhead, or is it just Dixon? Is he the only one on between the two of y'all?
He's the only one. I'm a flip-flop head.
So I guess, Dixon, now is there going to be a corollary sneaker release with this? Like, should we have a specific type of sneaker to go along with this particular LTO?
It's just really funny. And if I'm being honest, had I known how challenging it was going to be to keep coming up with these different, names and ideas for these icons, I probably would have never done it. And, because legal has to approve everything. And, my response to that is always, look, it's a one-off. Okay, what's the big deal? Somebody we got a cease and desist. Like, let's ask for forgiveness, not permission. But,
yeah.
So when they said, yeah, you can do Sneakerhead, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Okay. And then we started working with the artists and creating that. And, I kept pushing. I was like, can we just, and they're like, I mean, you're basically trying to put the Jordan 1 on the front of the bottle. And I was like,
without doing it directly. Because
don't tell anybody, like, just don't, so, it's been interesting. The things that, we've thrown out there that get, that don't make it, just blow me away. And then the fact that they're like, yeah, you can do Sneakerhead and we'll put a sneaker on the front of it that looks sort of like, it's like, okay, yeah, let's go.
And honestly, maybe that's how you get on Jordan's radar, right? Like, a cease and desist is at least getting attention, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, hey, look at this guy over here in Kentucky. We're gonna tell him to stop, but also, hey, I got some good whiskey.
Can I get a bottle of that? Right.
I think
let me send you a bottle before we stop doing it, and then if you agree later on, we can talk about it, because that's the $1 billion endorsement, right?
Would be big. It would change things. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
it would put you on the road more.
I'm pretty sure I saw Michael Jordan on his yacht the other day drinking some Jim of Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was a Sincoro bottle or a Jim of Kentucky bottle, but I'm going with Jim of Kentucky.
Barrel number 23.
I guess, I don't spend enough time on yachts next door to him like you do, David, and so I wasn't able to see Jordan on the yacht in the same way.
It was a reel on TikTok.
So, and you mentioned, as a part of, kind of what you're doing, and David, you've talked about it as well. You spend a lot of time traveling, doing kind of brand building or whatever. And Dixon, this is your second, third time around doing this, and David, I know you've probably traveled a lot for work, but like brand building for a whiskey brand, I guess looking for the perspective of, what's it like for the guy who's new to it, and what's it like for the guy who's like, okay, this is my third time having to build a brand or whatever.
What it's like to the guy that's new to it is constantly stepping in stuff and having to learn as you go. Mm-hmm. That's why I really do appreciate learning from others that have done this before. Dixon was a tremendous help from the beginning, and constantly willing to share his stories. I mean, he hasn't achieved what he's achieved by not learning, and but I love the transparency and to be able to kind of look out for things. But inevitably, you learn your own lessons, and being a different brand, having different price point and just different go-to-market strategy. There's just things you kind of look at. I've given the example before of like, oh, we just hitched our wagon to a giant grocery store chain, and really exciting. I'm going to bend over backwards for you guys. I'm going to put your logos all over my bottles. I'm going to redirect my branding and marketing to focus on you. And then, oh no, now I'm at the mercy of their rollout schedule, which is 6 months delayed, and really affected all of my marketing, finances, everything. And then guess what? Now we realize we don't we don't belong in every one of your stores because of location and on and on and on. Still ended up being a great partnership and great collaboration, but there's just constantly lessons to be learned. So hence the streamlining, finding those efficiencies, looking at creating true criteria for where we belong, and then focusing on only a small subset of strategic accounts and ensuring perfection and constant reshelving of those environments versus so that's for these particular SKUs. Now I've got some other brands that are gonna show up here fairly soon, and they'll be designed differently, and they'll have a completely different go-to-market strategy. But that's kind of the long and short of it is wow, there's so much to learn. You can't just read a book on rolling out if it were easy, everybody would do it and everybody would be successful. But there's so many nuances and so many different ways to do it. There's certain things you can learn, like, oh, don't scale too rapidly. That's a lesson, I think, for everyone. But then there's so many, fine details in between that.
I guess, Dixon, from your perspective, you're getting the opportunity to do this again. Is it getting easier, or is it still sort of the same pattern?
Look, man, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say it's, I mean, I have no business complaining. This is, I mean, I'm not Tommy Boy out selling brake pads. I mean, I'm going to talk with people about whiskey. We're drinking bourbon. Mm-hmm. It's not terrible. It usually ends up involving good food and good drink and a lot of fun people. So, I think, does it get a little taxing sometimes, or, of course, and you go and you land at, you get on a 6 a.m. flight and they pick you up at the airport at 10 a.m. and you go nonstop Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, event Thursday, meeting Friday. And most of the time I come home and I don't have a voice any longer. And the last thing I want to talk about is bourbon, but it's, no, I don't think it gets easier. I mean, it's but it's not, I pinch myself for the opportunity, all the time. And this is what I get to do. I think, I'm very fortunate that we have a great team that helps me kind of put these things together. I think you're constantly learning, what works and what doesn't. It's different market to market. And, and sometimes the visits are far more kind of distributor education focused. And sometimes they're a lot more consumer focused. And, I think, having, it's like all the change and the festival type thing got really big for a while, which kind of has turned into just big shit shows. So, I mean, it's kind of fun to work market by market and figure out what's the right thing for that market, the right thing to do. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to talk about something that I'm passionate about, that I enjoy, and I don't. It's not. Airplanes and hotels get old after a while, but that's I think there are a lot of people that sometimes have heard me complain about all of that, as if like, shut up, dude, and I get that. I mean, I realize there could be worse things that I could be doing with as a profession.
Yeah, there are worse jobs to have, but and at a much smaller level, I've traveled pretty frequently for work. There's only so many Hampton Inn breakfasts you can eat before you're just sort of tired of doing that thing, right? The same sort of recycled artwork that sits on the hotel rooms, the separation from family, all of these different things that kind of weigh into it. And so it's a legitimate complaint that, most of the people who are like, oh, I wish I had your problems, are staying in a hotel, maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And so they're imagining like the fun times of going and swimming in the pool and, going and eating at a restaurant down the road that you don't have back home or whatever you're doing. But the reality is, you're not swimming in the pool. You're waking up earlier than you want to. You're going to bed later than you want to. You're eating the same watery eggs or,
well, and that's the thing.
Fresh
like,
fruit.
Oh, you're going back to New York City. It's like, yeah, but it's not like we're sightseeing, I mean, I will say that, the hardest part for me, hands down, 100% is the time I'm away from my wife and my children. I mean, that's that is the part that wears on me. That's the part that that I kind of, that sometimes you complain, and I'm not complaining about the job I'm doing. It's really about, being pulled away from, but it's part of it. I mean, I think,
Right.
I have always felt like the most important thing about building a brand is having having something that's authentic, that people can attach themselves to, that makes it personal. And so for me, it was always about being a part of that personal connection, as opposed to just hiring some people to put on a t-shirt that says 2XO and you give them a 3 bullet points and say, here, go do this. That's just that wouldn't do anything for me. And I don't think that does anything for, it's part of it. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, and I think we did it. I did it before, was a personal connection, but both kind of to the brand and what it's about, not just specifically what's in the bottle. I mean, what's in the bottle has to be good, but there's a lot more to it than that, at least from my perspective.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. There's a lot of good whiskey in the marketplace, right? And so good whiskey has to be kind of the underlying factor, but it's not necessarily a differentiator, because depending upon your price point, you can find, from $0 to $300, you can find any number of good whiskeys. And so what is the personal connection that says to the consumer, hey, I want to pull this off the shelf as opposed to that, right? If I walk up to the shelf and I've got, Sneakerhead Blend and Golden Sheaf next to each other, which one do I pick and why? And it becomes an empathetic or an emotional decision at that point, right? Because you're trying to figure out what your connection is. And so, brand building is effectively that. You can start a brand, and you guys have mentioned other people, you just kind of, and there's no shame to it. This is the way a lot of brands do, is, just slap a label on it, stick it in the marketplace, and see if you can achieve it with your price point. And just, be there, right? Be low cost, but, okay whiskey, or hire somebody to go to a festival. You mentioned that, right? Like, there's a lot of people that work festival booths that don't know a whole lot about the whiskey. It's a great opportunity for nerds like me to taste a bunch of different stuff, but I also don't expect I'm going to learn anything unique about it while I'm there, aside from the opportunity to taste it. So I guess as we think about, you guys have built a number of blends over time. And this is going to go back to something you were talking about earlier, David, with the Distillix and the AI modeling, right? Dixon, I know you've probably built some blends and tasted some bottles that are just, the things that you kind of mark in your brain as the best thing you've ever had in your entire life, right? And David, you've probably built some blends and tasted some bottles that are the best you've ever had in your life. From your perspective, David, is this possible? And then from your perspective, Dixon, right? 2-part question. This is complicated. Would it be valuable to you if, you could potentially theoretically run some AI modeling to understand how that blend ended up coming into fruition, whether it be aging patterns, weather patterns that happened at that exact location, where that was over the 10 years that it was aged, and how it kind of gets to that point, and finding correlations to other blends that had similar patterns, right? David, is that possible to output? And Dixon, is that something that would be a valuable to you as you start building a blend and saying, okay, I know what it took to make that 2019 George T. Stag that everybody liked. And and I can find other barrels that mimic that and see if I can recreate it or at least steal from it?
I'm gonna say yes. Just is the simple answer, and so we're doing that. We're building digital twins of production environments, and from what's the expression, from seed to consumption. There's the common grain of glass, but we're taking it a step further, and we're looking at all of those factors, all of those variables that go into it. And at this point, it's data collection, right? So you're creating predictions based on facts or data input. Like to think they're facts, and so being able to collect as much data throughout that entire lifespan and input that, and then this is where you factor in artificial intelligence, where it comes in and starts to run through different combinations and predictions, and for a particular achieved outcome. And so yes, absolutely. And looking at those nuances within the production environment, to where, okay, we're going to tweak the cook time for X number of seconds and increase the temperature, or the cool time and temperature, the transition from tank to tank, and so forth, all of those things that go in there, so that we're able to install sensors along each step of that path. And some of them are more complex than others, really want to get into it. And now we're looking at aging, right? So you look at the maturation process and factor in all those variables, everything from elevation, temperature, barometric pressure, airflow, and be able to log the results, and then go in and recreate. We're even able to back into it, take a result, and then back into it, and what's it going to take based on those data types to equate to that type of flavor profile or expression. And it's exciting. It's a new time. It's so yeah, we're doing some really innovative things that have never been done before in the industry. And like anything else that's new, it's change, and so there's always some sort of apprehension or opposition to, wait a minute, why fix this if it's not broken? And so we're excited to be able to release some of these new things. We've got a brand of our own that we're building. I won't go into detail on it, but it's badass, and it's unlike anything that's ever been out in the market before. I have a lot of faith in it, and excited to share more about that in the future.
So yeah. Now he said it's possible, right? We can put these things together. If you had the ability to then kind of hand over, this barrel lived in similar conditions, is that a valuable point to you, or is it all just sort of trying to explain magic and say, no, let's just really rely explicitly on the taste, right? Would that be a valuable thing as you think about blending?
Look, I think, far be it for me to, say that technology and the opportunities to have that type of information on, that's like saying, 25, 30 years ago, like, no, I don't want to carry around a device that people can get in touch with me all the time. And I would never use that. And, so I spent a lot of time talking to people over the years about, really how I think, maturation is such, so much more important than distillation. We've made a big deal out of distillation because that's what we got to show people, because you don't have them come visit your facility and stand in a rick house for an hour and watch a barrel not do a damn thing. But it's really easy to talk to people about, when you taste that white dog off the still and then you taste the finished product in the tasting room, which do you prefer? And do you understand how different those actually are? And so, I think I have always kept a very close eye on our product during maturation and understanding what's going on there, and watching, proofs rise or fall, or where they're going, how it's developing. But for me and what I've done, and I guess the way my simple redneck brain works. There's a certain amount of, TMI, and I really enjoy, pulling all these different things and looking at how they are individually, and then how they coexist or do not coexist. And I'm, I think in a program where you're trying to replicate something, when you're trying to, to say, hey, we did this and people liked it, so I'm going to try to do this exact same thing again. That's got to be incredibly worthwhile information for people to have. I guess maybe it's a bit old school or whatever, but I like the investigative part of seeing what I've got. I don't really need to know why it got there or how it got there. I just, I just want to see how it works with it. So look, I understand, everything changes. Every industry changes. Every industry evolves. Every industry gets, is advancing and whatever. Again, a lot of, my hesitation to, it's because I'm probably too dumb to figure out the information that they're giving me. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like we're at data is one of those things that you don't know what you want until you have all the data, and then you have to figure out what the utility of it is, right? So you have to have the Davids of the world that's going to look at the spreadsheet with 127,000 rows and 800 columns, right? That hits the extent of Excel, period. To start kind of whittling down to, we have all the data. What's the data that makes sense? What's important? What's something that you can make actionable? And we're in that phase now with AI, right? Because trying to understand maturation from a data perspective was just too immense to really do with human components, right? You probably could have wrote some software to do it, but what was the value? We don't know. Now that AI exists, there's a potential to derive some insight that then could inform later on things it might do. I mean, I think about a Heaven Hill of the world or a Buffalo Trace of the world. If you can build a simple, AI driven algorithm that tells them these are the barrels that are the most likely to be ready for blending, you've just created an efficiency on a manufacturing scale that generates some savings, some revenue, or whatever. And Dixon, you said something that makes a lot of sense to me, right? I think the fun part for a lot of people is the distillation side of it, not the maturation side. When we go to a distillery and seeing all the science of it, but from my perspective and from a lot of people, there's something that switches when you go from the distillation side and you walk into the rick house. It feels more magical, at least in my perception, because there is that element of unknown. There's the tree that went into making the barrel. There's, the distillate came out as a manufactured product, but everything after that is sort of a guess, right? You may come out with something really, really good, and you may not come out with something really, really good. And ultimately, all of the AI derivations could prove that we still don't understand why it comes out good in the end, right? Because we don't find any corollary patterns that are there. But I think, it's all in the interest of building what I think are, interesting or complex blends. And so this is maybe more of a softball question, Dixon. It'll be up to you. When you put a blend together, if you're wanting something complex, what does complexity mean to you in a whiskey?
So it's kind of funny, complexity very simply is movement on the palate to me. Complexity, you hear these people talk about complexity, and it's because it's rhubarb and sassafras and caramelized giraffe hoof and a bit of, toasted balsam salt or something like that. That's not complexity to me. I think, the understanding of the palate that you taste sweet on the front of your tongue, you taste savory in the middle of your tongue, you taste spice on the back of your tongue, you taste sour, bitter, acid on the sides of your tongue. Complexity is movement. So is to start with initial sweetness on the front of your tongue that moves to savory notes and then moves to spice on the back end. And it's kind of that complexity is after you've tasted a whiskey, if you can still feel it in multiple portions of the palate, that's a complex whiskey to me.
Mm-hmm. What about you, David? What creates a complex whiskey?
Dixon said I could never top that. My
Caramelized
question,
giraffe hoofs. Apparently,
I was going to say my
one.
follow-up question is, where does caramelized giraffe hoof fall on the flavor wheel?
This is definitely a savory note. It's,
I was there with that. I'm thinking along the lines of like a steak rub that might have a little bit of brown sugar in it, so it gets a slight sweet smell to it. But I put that down. In you're absolutely right. I'm saying this is absolutely a two-faced comment, right? Tasting notes are sort of a pain in the ass, and they're kind of bullshit. Now I say that also knowing that I've been doing this for 3.5 years, and about 3 weeks ago I started putting out tasting note videos. But it was from the perspective of, number one, this is me. This is all I have.
Mm-hmm.
This is over the course of 3 tastings, and most of it's bullshit. Now, if you go and taste it and you get something similar to me, we may be close, right? But it's all based off of my memories, the things that I've had, in my life, and not what you've had. And so, but people like those things. And so when you're talking about building content, you have to go, tell them the caramelized giraffe hoofs, which I'm going to find a way to work that in to a tasting note on some American oak over here from 2XO, because it's Dixon's flavor wheel at this point now.
I usually, do these tastings and we'll slide in something just absolutely just ridiculous like that with a straight face, and there's always somebody in the crowd that's like,
me too,
come out their nose, or they're like, oh, what did he just say?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would add to that, just briefly, would be, which is probably falls into the more kind of maturity category, but I incorporate viscosity, kind of the thickness, oily, include that as kind of being complex. Just first glance, first taste of, okay, this is a 6-month whiskey versus a 12-year whiskey. That's the first thing that comes to mind to me, is kind of the different mouthfeel, texture of it. But yeah, Dixon, that's top, best way I've ever heard it described. His ability to be able to put tasting notes into something more applicable to the masses versus I taste caramel. That's pretty much. And then as soon as somebody in the room says I taste caramel, everybody in the room tastes caramel, right?
Right. Yeah, I've tried to, I've been on a handful of barrel picks, and usually my favorite thing is just like walk away from everybody else, right? Because I don't want them to tell me what they taste, because then I know I'm going to be biased. As soon as I, hear it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm either trying to not find that because I don't want to agree with you, or I'm trying to find it because I think you've got a better palate than me and I want to match, right? Like
right.
Oh, this guy's way better at this than me. I better make sure that I find that, even if I don't. So thinking about, Dixon, you've been naming your blends very specifically. You talked about this kind of going through legal. Are you going to have to find a new place to go on vacation now, since you name one Kiowa and that's like your favorite place to go on vacation? Now everybody knows, like, if I just go to Kiowa sometime in the summer, I might see Dixon, right? Has your celebrity hit that level yet?
Not even close. No, not even close. It was really funny, doing that when because I was down there and I was finishing the first round of Gemma Kentucky's, and I didn't get it done. So I took about, I don't know, a box of probably 100, barrel samples down there to go through them. And my team was like, where? I thought you were on vacation. I was like, I am. It's my office away from home. And they're like, you should name one Kiowa. And I was like, that's a great idea. Let's throw that out there, thinking there is not a chance in hell that legal allows that one to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Kiowa wants to tie in and use that as a part of their marketing. And I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. My family, we used to visit a particular island, just a little bit south of there. We went to Tybee outside of Savannah for a long time, and we have subsequently had to stop going there because now everyone knows about it. Like 30
Sure.
years ago, no one was going. Now, you have to fight the Airbnbs and the traffic's, awful. And we're just trying to find like the place that nobody knows about. And you're like, hey, I'm just going to put the place that we go to that may be idyllic and see if,
well,
gets overrun.
I learned a lesson there too. Generally, that's kind of, if you're from the Southeast, you've heard of Kiowa Island. If you're a golfer, you've heard of Kiowa Island.
Yep.
But I've been asked on a number of occasions if that was in some way tied to a Native American heritage in my family. It's like, or when you get on with our team and they're like, so we're really excited about the Kiowa blend, and it's like, so we had to do some pronunciation type things with
Sensitivity
that.
training is what it borderline comes across as.
So yeah, it's a lot of things you don't think about that come up.
First time, I want to say I did a solo podcast because you were at Kiowa Island, and I think I might have said something like, Dixon's in Hawaii. He's on Kauai Island in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So unable to join us. Hey, I want to know a couple thoughts. I bet everybody would be curious to see which icons didn't make the cut or won't make the cut. Like I'm sure there's a cat lady icon or a mulligan icon or even some of the up and coming icons.
The golf things, anything tied to golf, anything, my partners are two of my partners are big cigar smokers and anything tied to cigars. I wanted to name one, some reference to being from a small town or living in a small town or whatever. I mean, you can't go anywhere near that. I mean, I don't know. I was like, what are we afraid John Mellencamp's going to sue us? Like, what is going on here? Like, it's just unbelievable. The things that they're like, nope, not even, no way.
Wow.
It's been very interesting.
I would bet that they're reluctant to attach to that the song that was last summer or whatever that had the court square. They tried that in a small town thing, right? So if you're getting into the small town thing, probably makes some folks a little bit uncomfortable. David, you had something. I cut you off. Sorry.
I was just gonna say you're welcome to use the David Mark Young icon. I'm happy to collaborate with you on that. Give you full rights.
Yeah, like a little dangly belly button ring, like a little bejeweled type thing on the front.
I was going to suggest a crutch, like maybe a crutch for him.
A crutch, yeah, even better. Yeah, I threw those bad boys out the window a couple days ago. Yeah, happy to get
you may get a fine for littering if you're throwing them out the window. That's probably not the best way to dispose of your medical waste. So you guys talked about kind of where you sit in the market a couple of times. Some of your offerings would sit in what people would call either premium or ultra premium price wise. We had this, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but prior to COVID, we had a really steady growth of whiskey that was happening in North America, specifically around the bourbon marketplace. COVID happens and we hit this really, I think, what would be considered market-wise an unnatural peak, and then it kind of receded back down to where the normal curve probably would have been going with bourbon growth. So you have a lot of people that are saying, oh, the bourbon bubble, has burst or whatever. And I think from my perspective, it's more just normalized. But as that's happened, we've seen some brands slough off, some brands kind of refocus, like you're saying, Dixon, on that kind of entry price point. Do you think that that's going to give you guys an opportunity in the next, 2 to 5 years to solidify your place in the premium marketplace? Because, whereas 5 years ago, we were all just trying to buy, 3 years ago, we were all just trying to buy as many bottles as we could. Now we're being selective in what we purchase and maybe not as sensitive to premium pricing, but not buying as much volume.
Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would wholeheartedly agree with you that it's not a bursting of a bubble. It's a shrinking of a bubble. And when you start talking to people that are a hell of a lot smarter than me about a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of lot of interesting things that are happening just across the entire alcohol beverage space. I mean, wine is struggling like never, ever, ever before. And then the other thing that's very interesting is kind of entry level consumer, or what you would consider, I would think, entry level consumer. I have no idea what they call. I don't know what generation I am or what generation we're on now or what but the 20, say the 21 or 25 to 35 demographic, they're not drinking. They don't drink. That group doesn't, and so, and then, the other interesting thing about, what's happening here is that I saw a thing the other day in 2008, there were 17 bourbon distilleries in the state of Kentucky. In 2023, there were 83 bourbon distilleries in Kentucky with more coming. And, what's happening is that all of these new facilities are being built, and it's all on speculation, as well as, for resale, later down the road, not for, not necessarily for specific brands or whatever. I mean, it's this incredible volume of production that's taking place. And it's almost, but I think there's got to be some historical correlation to kind of what happened with craft beer. I mean, with craft beer, you had these things pop up, and the ones that were sold or acquired still exist, and all the other mom and pops and little ones that were trying to do this or do that, realized that was, as they say in Kentucky, the easiest way to make a small fortune in the bourbon business is to start with a large one. But I think that all of that is really starting to translate to, you're starting to see that effect at the consumer level. It's a lot of brands, a lot of new brands, a lot of brands with, fancy, shiny marketing that the consumers started to realize it's all kind of coming from the same stuff and tastes the same way. And there's not too much to be excited about, the next new thing. I mean, we all went through that phase, and COVID was big. It's like, oh, it's new, I got to have it. I got all this extra cash in my pocket. I'm buying. I got to get one of these. I want to be the first one to talk about this. And everybody's kind of going, man, at this point, if these people don't know what they're doing, if they're, I think people are a lot more selective and so I think there's a major transition that's kind of taking place in the in the industry. And for me and for 2XO, I mean, I have no desire to go out there and try to become a Bullet or a Woodford or there's no million case brand concept or design on my radar. I think, what we're after is trying to build something that is a recognizable brand in kind of the price point where the consumer is really starting to trend in terms of what their spend is, which is in that, whatever it is, 35 to 50 range on the high end. And then the hope is that, between the people who are still, purchasing and seeking out the ultra premium price points and turning new consumers on to higher end offerings from 2XO, that's how we're going to, kind of a slow grow build for our thing. The thing, and I promise I'll shut up, but the thing that blows me away is I still spend a lot of time answering, the phone calls from the people who say, hey, I'd like to get, your ear for, a half hour, an hour, I like some advice or whatever. And now, a lot of that is, it used to be, I'm trying to find some barrels. I'm looking for this, and now it's, I am overextended. The bank wants money. I thought by now, one of these big suppliers would have come in and offered us $1 gajillion. And do you know anybody that's looking to invest in brands? Do you know anybody that can help us? And I mean, to me, on the back end of that's a real sign of what's kind of to come in this industry.
Yeah, I've seen, I've kind of backed up, kind of, you look at the map on your iPhone and you expand out a little bit, and I tried to look at the industry at a broader sense, and I love what's happening in the international market, and so I've gotten into that. I mean, I'm working on rolling out a mezcal, some of the similarities, but it's interesting. You spend time in the social media world, communities, and you get these whiskey snobs that you get your entry level people, you get your people that know everything, and then you hop over into the mezcal world or the tequila world, and it's the same thing. It's there's these cult like communities that love their spirits, and they love their brands, and they love their blends, and so I'm dabbling in those markets in the tequila space, and because there is a shift. For the longest time, I made the decision to focus on bourbon years ago. I'm going to focus on bourbon. I'm not going to think about Scotch or Irish whiskey or Japanese whiskey. I want to know bourbon, and it was a commitment, and I'm glad I did that. So now I'm backing up and being able to kind of learn from the other markets. Still, bourbon's my passion, but now I love these other markets and what's going on, and it's interesting to see it's no different than craft beer, that you referenced earlier. It's just another type of, and now, honestly, I mean, I feel like you have to include cannabis into the whole mix. It's a whole new thing. You're talking about people 25, 30 years of age that aren't drinking. Well, guess what? They're getting high because it's being, it was decriminalized, and now it's legalizing here and there. And it's an evolution, and things are changing. And, it's one of those things. Honestly, it's a vice. I mean, some people use these things to celebrate occasions, and there's different reasons why people consume this stuff, but it's another vice that's out there, and it's legal, it's available, and so yeah, sure, that's going to take away from a similar type of activity. But yeah, it's interesting to look at the lay of the land and all the things available and the things that are upcoming and becoming more and more available and more sophisticated, and it's a good time to be in the market.
Yeah, and there's a lot of correlations to draw between, with you guys have done this a bunch, right? Between craft beer and whiskey currently, but any of the vice booms that have happened over the past 50 years, because you can look at vice booms of wine around the sideways era, when everybody was like, oh, like wine's super cool because Paul Giamatti, and that was a thing. And don't get me wrong, I was there with them. There's a coffee boom that's in there. There's a craft beer boom that's in there. There's a whiskey boom. There's cigar booms, and there's the impending boom of whatever's next, whether it be rum or single malt or tequila, right? There's another thing that's going to happen. And the ones that survived, Dixon, you touched on it perfectly. The ones that survived either sold out, or some of them stayed focused regionally, right? They really just kind of made sure they owned their local market price. And so you still see craft beer brands that popped up 25 years ago, but they said, you know what, we're just going to focus on owning Milwaukee, right? We're going to be the Milwaukee craft beer brand, period. That's it. And that's what I think is starting to happen in whiskey brands, because you talked about the growth in the state of Kentucky, but just in the United States even, right? Like there was 200 in the early 2000s. Now there's over 2,000 distilleries. Some of them are closing up because the best way to have a small fortune is to start with a large fortune. Exactly what you said. And we see more and more distilleries are, 25% capacity for themselves and 75% capacity of custom distillation or contract distillation for somebody else, right? Because the easiest way to save a little money is to have somebody else distill it for you, so you don't have to buy the equipment and all the stuff, and you can focus on branding or whatever. We're running out of time at this point, and I don't even know how many of my questions I actually touched. So let's look at the next 3 months. Where can we see Dixon or David, and what can we expect? I know we've got the Sneakerhead Blend that's coming out, but kind of beyond that, like where can I see you guys out in the marketplace if I'm trying to meet one of the esteemed blenders of the United States?
My calendar is in the other room, but I know that starting, I'm in the Northeast, and then up in the Nantucket area, and then in New York City. I've got a California trip, 2 Texas trips, a Georgia trip, 2 Florida trips. I've got 1 trip that's a Wisconsin, Minnesota trip, 1 Iowa, Nebraska trip. I think I'm actually going to the Dakotas in November, which is going to be kind of cold, but kind of cool. Yeah, that's off the top of my head.
Yeah, definitely going to leverage that when Dixon's up in this area. I'll be here at the same time, so I'm going to try to pin him down and get him into trouble. No, there's some. It's been 2 years, right? Since or maybe 2 years since. Well, I guess you were here briefly, but anyway, hopefully we can connect at that point in time. I'll be in Kentucky for quite a bit in the next couple months, and then out in LA. I've kind of alluded to a mezcal I've been working on, trying to put a American spin on a Mexican spirit, and gonna release that with a well-known entertainment act, and then got tequila in the works as well. But also have a couple releases, small releases that are going to be coming up here in the next 45 days, actually. Mm-hmm. We're dumping barrels soon. Hopefully get those bottles. I think probably going to be 1 release in online, and then the other 2 will be available in a couple different states, but small batch type stuff. And then, working on AI, and we're going to be going live with some of it'll be interesting to be able to talk publicly about some of the brands we're working with and what we're doing, and really excited about that. It's lots of
the
really
computer nerd
cool
in me
things.
Is super excited about that. As soon as you said that, the computer nerd in me was like, look at this, data's everywhere, give it all.
Yeah, well, think about all the things you can do with AI, and we're doing that. We're not just doing digital twins and modeling, that kind of stuff. We've got a number of things going on, so we'll see that kind of in the different verticals, kind of in the retail space, in the production space, and then some stuff available to consumers as well. So it's a lot going on, and then of course the rebranding of podcasts, which I think is going to probably by September be starting to put episodes out.
Awesome. So, I'll say this, every time I hear the phrase AI as a rural kid that grew up around cattle farms, it means something a little bit different. Some of those from the country, you're in Omaha, you get what we're talking about here, but there's a lot of optimism there. Super excited to see kind of the next things that are coming from both of your brands. I've followed them closely, and mezcal and tequila, keep me in mind, because I'm starting to branch out into other spirits as we talk about stuff. I did my first rum podcast last week. It was nice. It was a new experience. Thank you guys for giving me some time today. I know you guys are really, really busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. It's always, super appreciative that people will say, yeah, I'll sit down and talk to you about nothing for an hour or an hour and a half or however long it happens to come out. So anything comes up, you guys ever need anything, the platform's always available. Let me know what you need. But thanks you guys for hanging out today.
No, man. Thank you. Thanks for having us. I hope that you don't have to just cut all the dumbass stuff that I said. Sorry.
No, I'm not cutting any of it. That's just it. It's all staying.
Raw.
I love it.
Thank you, John. And same, you need anything, give a shout. And
thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Pod. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We didn't get to maybe 10% of the questions I had and asked a whole bunch of other stuff. But if you did enjoy this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you're consuming this on and leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using Embellish Pod. Give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, and contact details. Thanks for stopping by. Turning it off.
But yeah,
we're making it no longer available for people.
Good luck with that. I'm sure you'll do great.
Yeah, it's different than evacuating your bowels. That's a different term, but it's very
not much. It's not significantly different, right? Like it has a lot of the same reaction. There's some relief, but also then there's a mess to clean up afterwards. So